everybody, welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and I just got out of the theater. I'm finally back to seeing movies, or at the very least, this is the first film that I've been able to see since my daughter was born, and so I'm going to give my thoughts on The Creator, which I just got out of. New film by Gareth Edwards. It's been out now for a couple of weeks, and I went into the film with a lot of expectations, a lot of them being very, very high, because I had heard the review from the likes of The Critical Drinker and many others that I trust their movie opinions on, and they spoke very highly of the film. They also mentioned that there were some issues too, and I will say, just to start off with the issues, because there really aren't that many issues, which is a very, very good thing to say. And the issues to me would honestly be some of the pacing of the movie, specifically just the story as it's being told. It felt like at times the movie was either rushing or was just not taking enough time to develop certain ideas at certain points. For instance, again, the film felt like it could have and should have been a bit of a longer film as far as just the amount of story and the amount of story elements that they had. The universe that they are building here, this is in a post-apocalyptic style world where AI has kind of become very prominent. We see that, of course, in our current culture. But about 50 years or so from about right now, you have this massive explosion that takes place in Los Angeles, right? This nuclear explosion which wipes out millions of people, and so the United States and the West become very anti-AI, whereas those in the East, specifically in this New Asia area, become very, kind of pro-AI, because they recognize that there's a little bit more nuance to the discussion. And so from that aspect, it's such a big world and such a large amount of history to try to be able to explain in a short amount of time. And the film is definitely not short. It's still, well over 2 hours long, about 2 hours and 15. And so where on the one hand, I feel like, getting back to the pacing, where I feel like it should have been longer, or maybe should have been more than one film, at the same time as this individual movie, it did at times also feel a little bit on the slow side. I think there were some of those pacing issues, and I know a lot of people have talked about the third act especially, because there are certain things that are revealed, certain things that you're building up to, and it feels a bit more rushed compared to other parts of the film. And I think this all kind of goes hand in hand, one with the other, which is they should have spent a little bit more time formulating and expanding the story. And it's one of those sad things where when a movie like this exists, when you're creating a new world, you think to yourself, this probably should have existed as a miniseries, because then you actually have a lot more time to be able to develop your story, to be able to really build and to not leave any stones unturned, and to not run into this issue. The issue, of course, though, is that when you have a brand new property, something that's very unique and something that's original as an idea, you're not necessarily going to get the $80 million that Gareth Edwards was able to get on this movie. And that's also, again, kind of now moving into just the great things about this movie. This film is phenomenal in how much they were able to do for so little. I mean, $80 million sounds obviously a lot to us, but when you think about movies and you think about how the vast majority of anything coming from the Disney universe, from MCU, from even the DCEU, you're talking a minimum these days of $150 million or so, and the effects don't look good. The writing isn't any good, and there are just so many flaws that exist in those stories. And yet for $80 million, Gareth Edwards was able to have some of the most compelling use of CG that I've seen in quite a long time. It looks very, very good. It's not even that it looks good for 80 million. It just looks good, period. And for anyone that knows me, I'm a pretty big stickler when it comes to CGI and just how overused it is in movies. And when it's overused, it's not just about it being overused, but also it just not looking very good. This film uses it just the way they should, doesn't overuse it really in any way, and it looks really, really good to boot. So you have this phenomenal use of the funds for this movie. Again, $80 million, which is a sad thing still, because it still cost enough to where, unfortunately, it's just not making enough at the box office, where it probably still won't be able to break even. But still, kudos to Gareth Edwards for being able to do a lot with very little, in comparison especially to other films that have, again, 2, 3, 4 times the budget and could never even dream to look as good as this. I'm looking at films like The Flash, which was awful. I'm looking at films like even Dial of Destiny. Again, these films that have these bloated budgets, and yet they don't do anything with them, and they produce terrible movies. Give Gareth Edwards as much money as he wants, give him full creative control, and guess what? You get a really cool looking movie. Other elements are really great too. The acting is fantastic. Washington does a really good job. I think that he really, impressed me in his role at, in the film Tenet. And I know that, Tenet is not the film that a lot of people like from the Christopher Nolan universe, but I thought that it was actually pretty good, and he was a really good part of that. He's great in this. And then I know everyone's been talking, I don't even know her name, but the young actress who plays the AI, kind of like this central figure in the movie, she's phenomenal. And apparently this is the first role she's ever had, and it's really honestly some of the best acting that I've seen, especially child acting, that I've seen in quite a long time. You believe every emotion that she's feeling, when she's happy, when she's sad. You see that, and they did a perfect job, because one of the things you had to do, and one of the things Gareth Edwards had to do, was compel the audience to care about a character that we know to be AI, we know to be made of algorithms and all these other things, but is also trying to be played as human. And so you have to make the audience buy into it. And he did that not only with the way the character was written, the backstory of the character, which when, they kind of revealed a little bit more about it, and you could kind of predict some of the things that were happening. But when they finally did reveal it and the way they did, it was, again, something that just added to how much you actually as an audience care for her as a character, and also the character played by Washington. And so I think that she was phenomenal. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. Story, again, very, very strong, but at times it definitely felt like there were pieces either missing, things that were rushed, things at other points in the movie that maybe they spent too much time on. So again, I think that there were definitely some of those pacing issues that existed, specifically within the storyline, more so than anything else, right? So not really an editing issue, more so just not having enough time or capacity to tell the story that really should have been told with this. It's one of those things where I came out of it loving so many things, right? The visual effects, the acting, these story elements, because the story is very unique and is just very, very well told. But then at the same time, I was also coming out with those frustrations of, man, I wish that they had been able to do just a bit more. It's like one of those films where it could have been one of the best films to ever be released in film history, or at the very least last 10, 20 years. And instead it ends up being just a really good film. So again, that's not taking away anything from the movie itself. It's still very, very good. I think it's well worth seeing in theaters. Right now, it's still playing in IMAX in certain locations. I know right now, I think that the new Exorcist movie has taken over, but luckily there was this midday showing that was available. So if you have the ability to see it in IMAX, I'd recommend it. I think that elevates it. I think having that extra sound, having that bigger image for a movie like this definitely works very well. All of the action sequences are also very well done. Gareth Edwards has kind of been known to be able to do that quite effectively, whether you go back to the 2014 Godzilla, or you go even into Rogue One, which was a film I'm not really a big fan of. I know a lot of people really like that movie, but I'm ultimately not. But Gareth Edwards showed for this film, more so than anything previously, hey, the dude knows what he's doing. The dude, when he's given creative control, can do a lot of really great things. So overall, very good acting, phenomenal acting, especially from the supporting cast. A very, very compelling story, but again, could have been filled in a bit at times, whether that meant making the film longer, or whether it meant having this film broken up, which again, I understand the practicality, or the lack of practicality to doing that in an age where a movie like this, even at $80 million, is probably not going to make its money back. Why a studio would give more money to make more films in a franchise, again, and also special audiences are very tired of franchises these days. So you have all these really great things, but there are those caveats there. If I had to give this film a grade, I would probably have to give it a, honestly, the ending is something that I just kind of got stuck with, and I'm just now remembering it. Hans Zimmer did the score, and the score definitely elevated this film even more so than it already was. And so I think I'm leaning B plus, A minus territory, probably more so the A minus territory. And if I had to go by critic lists, I would say that this film is maybe on the bottom end of most awesome. But at the very least, it's a very high rad or a very low most awesome. Either way, it's a good time, and I think it's worth seeing. And I think this is a film I will be buying on 4K as well, because it's a film I would love to find out more about the behind the scenes of this project. But those are my thoughts. Have you seen this movie? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Allow the fire button. Honestly, smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members: Father Luca Illich, Laura, the Mother Major General's Story, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel by the name Eagle Rider, Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. Also to Matt317, check out his Twitch channel of the same name. Mr. Roy and ZK-Man, check him out over at xtheboundaries.co. Thank you very much for being my Chosen members this month, and if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, also access to a podcast, access to a giveaways channel, and tons of other stuff, go check out to be a member today in the links in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.